It's that time again. It's the Berkey and the Badger Board Game Babble Show. It's going to get wild. It's going to get wacky. It might even get a little zany. We're going to talk about board games and the board game industry. And, you know, we might talk about anything else we want to talk about. Hey! It's the Berkey and the Badger Board Game Babble Show. Welcome, folks, to the wonderful kingdom of Babblot. And our court jester is here, Sir Badger the Brave.
Thank you for your very kind introduction, my sire. It's good to be here in the castle for a change, instead of out in the streets busking.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You know, other than having the bad temperatures that we have here, I had some bad news I needed to tell you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I went to the doctor, and I figured we'd just get this out of the way right off the bat, you know. But the doctor asked me, he said, "Do you smoke?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Cigarettes, marijuana?" And I said, "No, mostly brisket and ribs." He didn't like my response, so that was the bad news.
That's a good one.
I don't know what that marijuana is, but you bring it over here and I'll drink it.
Oh, dear. Good to see you in good spirits. You should be the court jester with jokes like that, not me.
Well, I wish it was original, but it was funny. It cut my fun.
Yeah, but it kind of caught me with my pants down. I wasn't expecting that kind of joke this early in the show from you, and it didn't involve pirates. So
that's right. Yeah, we have to shake it up a little bit. I'm a versatile king, very versatile.
You are indeed.
Well, welcome everybody to the Berkey and Badger Show. I tell you, we've got a fun show. It might be slightly abbreviated in the fact that we are going to not talk about some games that we've recently played in this episode. We're going to be possibly doing another segment, another show that's an abbreviated show that talks about the games that we are currently playing, kind of like we did the good, the not so bad, and the ugly. But to keep this moving, we're going to talk a little bit about the things that make the king go, We're going to revisit our Babble poll. And then we have our Babble topic. And today it's called Tea for Two. And why? Because, I'm so glad you asked, we are talking about games that are two-player games and other games that are best played with two. So we're really looking forward to that discussion, hoping you'll join in with us and give us some ideas on what you think are good two-player games. So with that, Barry, what's been going on in Babblot for you?
Oh, wow. Wow. You're up in the north getting snowed in and everything. I'm having like buds and things popping up everywhere. So like, it's gardening weather. Time to cut the grass. The grass has been cut. Well, I say grass. That's pushing.
You have grass?
No, it's about
the grass.
No, because then I won't have any grass. But yeah, it's about 40% grass, 30% moss, and then the rest is all kind of weeds and stuff. So I cut the weeds basically in the moss.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, the garden's going to need redoing, I think. I'm going to have to do that this year. But yeah, the chickens are happy, almost. we've had some leave us recently due to old age, which is rather sad. And I'm all new to this kind of like farming animals kind of thing. Oh. So yes, I'm looking forward to getting some new chickens to come our way. So yeah, chickens are coming, eggs are coming, and vegetables are starting to grow. I've got little seedlings growing now. I've got tomatoes growing, peppers growing, basilic growing. I've got a load of salad which is starting to pop up now. So it's all hands on deck to get that garden ready for planting.
You're really frustrating me because up in the northern part of the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
We still have 8-foot snowdrifts, and last night was 10 below zero Fahrenheit.
That's like I caught a helicopter here to the castle. I missed all that.
I want to get out of here. I gotta tell you, it's I'm looking out that window, and there's our herb garden. It's got a bank of snow this far on it, 2 feet on top of it. It's an elevated herb garden. It's going to be a month before things thaw out here in Minnesota. Yeah, sure, you betcha.
Well, you can start growing things in the house now. Put them in front of the windows.
I probably could do that. You're probably right.
Get some pots.
Not going to happen, but you're probably right.
Yeah.
We don't have any windows on that side of the house where we can actually do that very well.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we'd have to. It'd be great to have we've talked about having a greenhouse, but right now the temperature is just way too cold anyway. So it's just what it is. It's been a long winter, and we're hoping that it will go away soon.
It gives you plenty of time to do other things, though, doesn't it? If you can't go out and play. Yeah, you can do things around the castle. Get rid of those drafty toilets. And Whereas me, I'm glad to be out the house and doing stuff in the garden.
I want to get on my dragon and fly to the south.
Yes, you should. And you can come and get your fingernails dirty with me.
Well, we're going to move on. One thing that we want to talk about real quick before we move into our next segment, the things that make the king go home, is our wonderful sponsor, Arcane Wonders. Arcane Wonders has some awesome products coming out that you can get now through your retail channels and through their online store. But they've got the hit game, Dice Manor. Now, Barry, you just did a full review on this game, right?
Yes, I did indeed.
Where can they find that review?
They can find it on my YouTube channel, BoardGamesEverybodyShould.com, or they can go and find it on BGG, Board Game Geek, under the game Dice Manor, or under my blog, BoardGamesEverybodyShould.com.
I got to play this at Tantrum Con, and I tell you what, it's a really cool dice placement type of game where it's kind of got that Las Vegas mechanism where you're drafting those dice to go get spots, and there's a little bit of competition, and then you're collecting your mana, of course, to collect victory points. Super fun game. People likened it to the game Vegas Showdown. I don't know if I felt like it felt that way quite as much because of that really cool dice placement mechanism in it. But anyway, it's pretty dang cool. And then they've got a new game that you should start seeing. Mother of Frankenstien, Volume 1. Look at that bad boy. Bad girl.
That is bad. What's that about?
It's about Frankenstein's mother.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's a story-driven type of game, and it's from the Shelley volumes, a collection of hollowed-out books left by Mary Shelley, author of Frankenstein, to her son Florence. Inside, you'll discover a trove of beautiful documents, 2D, 3D, jigsaw puzzles, and mysterious objects and artifacts. Solve Mary's puzzles, and you'll be treated to a heartbreaking story that accumulates in shocking reimagining of the truth behind this famous novel. So pretty cool. I haven't actually looked at it, so I don't have a whole lot to tell you about it.
Yeah, I can see that.
I just got it in right before I got back, so I got to take a look at it. And of course, Mobile Markets is now available. Picture Perfect, Furnace, and they've got the new expansion, Furnace Interbellum, coming out. And I got to play Furnace at Tantrum Con as well. Totally dug that. I mean, what a great game. Engine building at its finest. I'm serious. I really, really enjoyed Furnace. So anyway, you can check out all those great games at arcanewonders.com. And with that, we're going to move on to our next segment. Things that make the king go,
This is the Board Game News, where King Berkey reflects on some of the current things happening in the board game industry. Some may be good, some may be bad, but they're all things that made our king go, hmm. So I'm curious,
ditty.
What has made you go, hmm?
Well, this is interesting. There's been some huge crowdfunders that have recently come out, and one of them is on Kickstarter, and it's Battletech from Catalyst Game Labs. Now, if you look at this, Barry might be pulling this stuff up, but on Kickstarter, Catalyst Game Labs, they're known for Battletech, but this game is already at almost $4 million.
Wow.
Amazing. In addition to that, there's another game on Kickstarter from AEG, Alderatic Entertainment, which I love their games, and it's called Let's Go to Japan.
Okay.
And that's kind of a set collection type of game where you're going and going on vacation, seeing all kinds of stuff in Japan. I love what AEG does, but that one there is run a little over $400 and some $1,000 through, has 12 days to go. But then on GameFound, their Chip Theory games that are known for a couple of their other big games, like Too Many Bones, has a game called Elder Scrolls. Well, on GameFound, this thing is, I think it's almost at $2 million. Yeah. Look at that, 1.9 million. Is that euros or is that dollars?
That's dollars.
Dollars. So some big crowdfunding projects are out there. So I thought this was the part that was interesting. There's another game on Kickstarter right now, and it's from Gamelin Games. And Gamelin Games is known for their Tiny Epic series games. And I have most of them. I like a lot of them a lot. Some more than others, but there's just some really cool little games by Scott Alms. They also have a bigger game, their Land, Air, and Sea game that is beautifully produced. But there's this game from Gamelin Games on Kickstarter called The Last Kingdom. Okay. The Last Kingdom is from the series on Netflix. It's a hit series. I think they have 5 total seasons. I was just finishing up watching it here recently, actually. And it's that era where the Danes have invaded England and the Saxons and all of that. It's just rich with theme. It's partially fictitious and partially historic, but it's really well done, and it's in that whole Viking age. Well, this particular game is an area control type of game. Well, the thing that made me go, was not just to tell you games are on Kickstarter, but look at the number, 35,000 euros. This just launched a couple days ago, so it still has like 16 days to go. Gamelin Games has a huge database. They generally will have 4,000 to 5,000 backers easily with a game that they produce. And I was just so surprised that this Kickstarter is only funded at this level right now. And it made me go, why is that? Is it because this is a different kind of game for Gamelin Games? They have Land, Air, and Sea, which was a huge hit. That game is very popular, and it did extremely well. So why is this one lagging? I know they've got a great database. They've got a great marketing team. They have really good reviewers. That Mark Street has reviewed this from the Dice Tower, says it's awesome. Dan King, the Game Boy Geek. Adam Muka from Weekly Game Night in Poland, Czech Republic, I think, did a review on it. Rado Runs Through did a review. So it's got notable people that have audiences that are signal boosting it. The production quality of this game, it's like crazy good. I could see one knock. They're using actual clip art from the movie theater. Or from the series, which I don't mind, actually. I kind of like some of that. Of course, authentic art is really cool, but look at all the miniatures that come with this thing. I mean, they've got awesome miniatures. There's 10 of the player uh, uh, special abilities that all have, that special ability to play with. It's a unique scoring track. It's an area control game. It's also card driven, so plays over 2 full seasons. It sounds like it plays really quickly. There's a lot of changing of alliances and things like this. Well, I'm really excited about this. I think the production looks great. Tons of miniatures. This is designed also by oh gosh, I just lost the name. He's done a lot of projects for AEG, like Dead Reckoning. Oh, come on, John C. Clare.
Okay.
And he's a brilliant designer. This Kickstarter page looks great. Why is it doing so poorly?
That is a good question.
Is it because there's some other really big projects running right now?
Possibly. And I mean, again, looking at the base pledge, $55. Okay. You compare that to the Elder Scrolls, which is a $200 pledge for the base game. No minis, tokens, poker chips, and cards. And I'm at loss for words. People have gone gaga for this Elder Scrolls game, and
it's huge.
It's expensive.
They've got a great pedigree. They make great games, no question.
Yeah, but again, I have no reference because I've never played any Chip Theory games, so I have no idea. And again,
they're actually based in Minnesota here.
Yeah, I am.
Cool.
I'm at a loss for words. I can understand why it's made you go, it might be a case of people are more tuned into Elder Scrolls than they are The Last Kingdom, the series.
Are you familiar with the Last Kingdom series?
Not at all. I haven't got Netflix, so I am out of the loop on that regards.
I liked it. I'm just a little dumbfounded by it because I know that Gamelin has a great track record of delivering on time. They do good production. Their marketing is good. I made me think it's either just the timing that these other big games are getting all the press. Maybe they didn't put as much marketing into it first. I don't know. It seems like I've heard some things about this the last few months, and I was kind of had it on the back of my head that I heard about that. That sounds good. But the more I looked into it, it looks really good. I just wonder if there's as many eyes on it or not. And maybe it's area control games. Sometimes area control games aren't the most, dudes on a map
enticing
games. They tend to not have as much, but this one looks kind of intriguing. From what I was gathering by a little bit that I read on it, it doesn't look like it's horrible. There's a lot of switching of alliances. There's a lot of player interaction between everybody on every turn. So I don't think it's that big downtime problem with some area control games, but I don't know. Well, you go check it out. Tell us what you think. We'd love to hear what you think about it. I'd take a look at it, and I'm interested in some of those bigger games. I'm not a big Elder Scrolls guy, so I don't know if I'm going to be interested in that. But
I'm interested, but for $200 for some tiles, some cards, and some poker chips, I'm like, well, sorry, I paid like €85 for the Elder Scrolls game, and that came with at least 6 minis in it.
Yeah.
And a bucket load of cards and some beautiful artwork. And again, the license, you're paying for the license as well, which would have taken a good chunk of that money. And unless, was it Chip Theory games are basically using the same system as they did for Too Many Bones for an Elder Scrolls game, that might be why this is so popular. It's like a retheming of a mechanism, but with this big, epic, well-known Skyrim theme.
Well, it's interesting sometimes a Kickstarter hits and sometimes it doesn't. And
Yeah.
it's not always just the game. I don't know what the magic is there all the time, but sometimes
we don't know what the marketing is. We don't know how long they've been demoing the games before they go to Kickstarter, because that's a big component as well. You know, word of mouth, people playing the prototypes and going, oh yeah, this is cool. Oh, I like this. Yeah. And then eventually the KS Brink comes along and it's boom.
Well, I kind of remember when Scythe first hit Kickstarter back in the day when Jamie from Stonemaier Games was doing Kickstarter, and there was so much buzz around that particular game that when he came out with his expansion and that type of thing, there was so much pent up demand for more stuff. You know, they love what he was doing there, that they couldn't wait to jump on board type of thing. So they might have some company momentum, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, going on there in both of these, you know, BattleTech, I think it's been a while since they've launched a campaign, but there's a huge following of BattleTech. So, you know, but $4 million already? That's wild.
Incredible. I mean, where did people get the money from as well? It's like everyone's struggling to get through their life at the moment. Hence all the protests going on in France still.
Oh, really?
So the UK is not doing well, and you know, from what I've seen from the US, it seems like there is, you know, this gap, divide in the pay, the wages, and so people are struggling to get through their paychecks. And
it's definitely an interesting economic time, and then we still have some of these huge campaigns that are just seem to be thriving. Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, that was my thought on things that make the king go home. So we're going to move into the Babble topic, but our next sponsor, which I have a wonderful affinity for, is Game Toppers.
This video was made possible with the help of Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience with a Game Topper.
There it is. Well, the thing that I'm going to say really quick about Game Toppers, we are running a March Madness sale, and it ends on March 31st. So there's only a couple days left to really get in on this thing, but you can get 15% off all accessories and premium game mats. That means our mat racks. That means our collapsible, innovative cup holder system. That means the storage bags. That means our dining covers for Game Toppers, our leg kits. All of our accessories are 15% off, and you can take advantage of that. Not only that, we have over 20 different styles of thematic game mats, premium 3.6 millimeter, not a stitched edge, non-skid backing, and wait, there's more. You get a free mat storage bag, a $20 value with every mat that you purchase. Plus, you're taking advantage of that 15%, which is actually a little bit better than free shipping. So you can take advantage of that yet for a couple more days. We also have a whole bunch of package deals on our Game Toppers system that gets you the Game Topper of your choice in 7 different sizes. We have premium walnut, luxuriant oak, and with the storage bag, the cup holders, your choice of a mat, and some other accessories at significant discounts. And you can take advantage of all of that sale at shop.gametoppersllc.com. Shop.gametoppersllc.com. And that's our other sponsor. And now we're going to move right on into the Babble topic.
And now it's time for the
Babble, 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 Berkey and Badger's Board Game Babble.
Hey.
Ooh.
Well, I'm excited about this. Barry, you had this idea about talking about two-player games and some different things. So why don't you give us a rundown of some of your thoughts to start out with before we talk about our top two-player
Yes.
games and so forth?
Yes. Okay. So I've been doing a lot of playing two-player games. And I'm sure that probably you have as well. And if you're lucky, there's some other person in your household you can play with, or maybe someone in your street, or maybe both. So you can have 3 people to play with. But
The dog.
yeah, that's what it's been like after the pandemic is finally worn off. It's getting back into being with your friends and playing games. But unfortunately, that's not always possible because everyone's trying to catch up with everyone who's trying to catch up with everyone. And so I personally have been playing a lot of games solo and 2-player. Even though there are 4 players in the house, I've been playing a lot of games 2-player due to the fact that one person doesn't want to play that game or another person doesn't want to play because they want to play on their phone instead. So it's been a lot of 2-player gaming going on here, either with my wife, either with my daughter, or either with my son. And the thing that got me into this subject was the fact that while I was playing some of these games, I was getting this feeling that maybe this 4-player game is not really designed for 2 players. Or maybe this 2-player game is just too much aggression against each other and is very stressful, and it shouldn't be that way because with more players there's a little bit of discharge. You're not always being attacked, so to speak, or being slapped around the face. So it just kind of like came up this idea of, are 2-player games best designed as 2-player games, because we are now seeing like these 4-player games coming in a 2-player version, like Splendor. 7 Wonders has a 2-player version. There is a
Duel.
Yeah, there is a 2-player version of Imaginarium called Nicodemus. So it's like the same kind of game, but made for just 2 players. And it's like, yeah, were these games really designed to be 2 to 4 players, 2 to 5 players, 2 to 6 players? Or was it just an option that it was just you can play with 2 players, although you're not going to get like the full kind of cinematic surround sound feeling of being at the cinema,
Yeah, and sometimes it's almost the opposite, that it's a 2-player design game, but then they put in variants that allow you to play it with 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have several examples I was thinking of that, and in every situation that I can think of, I don't like it.
Yeah.
When we go through our top games, I'll give you a few of those thoughts around that. It's like, no, this is best played at 2 players. But it seems like we'll get to that.
Okay.
My thought about 2-player games in general is they tend to seem like they're a back and forth. You do this, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Type of mechanism, to where you're, almost like chess. You're going back and forth. We're responding to each other's moves, that type of thing. They sometimes tend to be those 2-player combat driven type of. There's a lot of that in strategy games seem to be in this 2-player. You have less games that are like designed with all of the worker placement, resource management, those type of games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They tend to not be as much in the 2-player genre, but I might be wrong about that. But of the games that we like, that's the way I think about them.
Yeah, I think, for example, Stone Age, when you play 2 players, they remove certain spaces. So it kind of restricts the game a bit. So it still has that same kind of thing where you're basically fighting over the spaces, and it keeps it tight for 2 players, which is nice. But yeah, there's not a lot of 2-player worker placement games or games that are worker placement that you can play with 2 players, which feel kind of right. There's that kind of like really nice tight knittedness of, if you're going there, I'm going here. Or I've got no choice. I have to go here. Like in Stone Age, it's like there's 3 principal spaces. There's the baby making hut, there's the tool making, and then there's the fields. And in a 2-player game, only 2 of those spaces can be used. So as soon as one player jumps into one of those spaces, the other player has to take one of the other ones, or they lose out. Because then the first player would then take the second one, and then the third space can't be used at all. And that makes it quite competitive, but it's only like really competitive there. Whereas the resort,
well, and Ticket to Ride, instead of those double lane tracks where 2 people can go on in a 3 and 4 player type game, now only one of them can be used, for instance, with the exception of Nordic countries,
Yeah. So again, there's a nice little kind of restriction to keep the 2-player game a bit more tighter and a bit more fierce, and not so open river, so you can just like swim anywhere you want. So yeah, there are some games which try to compensate for the number count. Recently, I've been playing Heat, Pedal to the Metal.
Okay.
And to make that interesting, they have kind of like a solo mode where you can play with all 6 cars. So you drive one car. If you're playing with a second player, or if you're playing on your own, you're racing against 4 or 5 ultimate cars.
Right.
And so
right.
that's a nice little system to make the game feel a bit more interesting and a bit more challenging, as these other cars kind of get in your way or give you a little boost as you kind of slipstream around them.
Rolling Thunder has that too. The Richard Lanius game, same type of thing when you're playing. Okay. I don't know. Does Flamme Rouge have that same type of multiplayer?
No, I don't think there is like an ultimate player. You basically play 2, 3, or 4 players with that, and so you have to have like the slipstream.
So games like that require a lot of players. I'm thinking of. I'm not seeing anybody in the live chat, so I'm not sure if our chat function is working. Normally we have several people in here. I'm really curious if you're listening to this after this podcast drops, what your thoughts are. We're going to have information in our Board Game Geek Guild, a poll, and that's a Geek Guild 2248. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. 2248, yeah. But when games have, I'm thinking like Ready, Set, Bet, for instance, from AEG. Super fun game, but not at 2 players. Long Shot, the dice game, racing type games. Flamme Rouge, we just mentioned. You mentioned Heat. To me, they just don't work. And party games, of course, they don't really work.
No,
2 players.
No. So I've been basically feeling that. There's games that I'm playing and I'm thinking this as 2 players is not working. And to answer my first question, do I like 2-player games better than solo or 3 or 4 players? I'm going to say no. Because if a game is designed for maximum of 4 players or maximum of 6 players, you should try and get that number. Playing 2 kind of misses out on the interaction. Number 1. Number 2, there's less slapping around the face of each other, especially in a very combative game where it's like, it's my turn, I slap you around the face. It's your turn, you slap me around the face. Again, with that, if one player is better than the other.
I really like that game, Slapface. That's a good game. Slapface. Really
again,
good.
If one
There's all kinds of videos on the internet and people are just slapping each other.
Right. There's not the thigh slapping game, which is kind of nice as well, or the wrist slapping.
No, that's a face. And then they get all woozy and fall over.
Yeah. So again, if one player is better than the other, then it kind of the thing I've been falling into is if I'm better than my opponent, I feel bad for the opponent, especially if I'm, doing very, very well, because you can kind of like see them, the life drain out of them, and that kind of like makes them kind of put off of that game, because there's like, okay, this game is not. I'm
no
not
fun
doing
to
good at
play
this game.
chess with a chess master, right?
Yeah. You're probably not going to play chess again if you lost. And again, as I said, if I'm winning so easily, I'm like, this game doesn't work 2 players, especially if it's one-sided. And so it's like you do need the 3rd or 4th player. So there is kind of like a communal thing. So like if one person's pulling ahead, the other players can gang up on them and pull them back down and push themselves back up. And so it makes the game a bit more level in a sense by having more players. And I think that's the thing, which is what I'm feeling from the games that I've played over the past year, is that feeling. The 2-player, it's just like if it's unequal, it's not fun. And if it's slapped around the face every time, it's not fun. You need other players to change the mix and also to make the game a bit more level.
Hey, Rick is in the courtyard. Welcome, Rick.
Hello, Rick.
Talking about 2-player games. Well, the way I frame that question is, do you like 2-player games better than a solo game, or a game that's generally designed for 3 or 4 players? I think your answer to that is that you prefer games that are 3 to 4 player type of games, not games that are specifically 2-player games.
Yes.
Okay, I would
Sorry.
I would take umbrage with that. Umbrage.
Go on then.
I would take umbrage. No, it's okay that that's your taste. My perspective on that, and this might probably be a minority perspective. I think your perspective is probably more of a majority. There's certain 2-player games that I absolutely adore and can't wait to play, and I only want to play them 2-player. So when I went through my list of 2-player games, I could have done 15 easy.
Okay, but
really
they are
easy.
officially 2-player games. They're not
Officially 2-player. Only play 2-player, basically.
Okay.
There's a couple of them that had those stupid. You can play 3 or 4 players as teams or something, but they always suck. So
Yeah.
that was. So yeah, I think I really do like 2-player games, but if I were to choose a game, I would much rather play a 3 or 4 player game, because I like the interaction of the group probably better than I like the 2-player. But at the same point, there's some 2-player ones I really adore, So yeah. I think what might have skewed part of my gaming upbringing, if you will, is we had a lot of opportunities where my best friend and I were playing 2-player games. We'd play Axis and Allies over and over again as 2-player.
Yeah.
Things like that. And then as my son Josiah came into the gaming community when he was around 12 years old, started getting really good at games, we played tons of game 2-player. And I would be looking sometimes for those 2-player games to play, and also games with my wife. So I was trying to find that perfect 2-player game that she would enjoy, that we would be able to play.
Yeah. Yeah. You just made me think. I just looked at my list of 2-player games, and I'm thinking, I see a pattern. Well, I see a pattern on both lists that I have.
A pattern.
Yes, a pattern. Yeah.
He sees a pattern. What kind of pattern is it?
Yeah.
Is it lovely mosaic pattern?
Maybe I'll mention it at the end when we go through our lists.
We'll do that. It's hard to talk about without mentioning games from our list, right?
Yeah, kind of. But yeah,
well,
if a game, for me, that question is badly phrased. So yeah, if a game is X number of players, do you prefer to play it as a 2-player game or more?
Well, the number 2 question, and
Yeah.
this says, do you think publishers include a 2-player variant as an option, but generally it's not an optimal player count?
Yeah.
You think so? So they do it for marketing purposes, you think, rather than
Not
actual game
deliberately.
playing?
Not deliberately. I think that a game works well as a 2 players. I mean, Splendor works well as a 2-player. But is it fun as a 2-player where again you're just like basically trying to steal stuff out from underneath the other player? I mean, again, it's not literally slap face every turn. I mean, a lot of games that I've played have been slap face every turn. Dice Manor, for example, 2-player. It is a case of, right, I'm taking this. Oh well, I've got to take this, and then it's like I've got to take that, and then there's very, very little conflict, and it's a case of like, well, if you're going there, I'm gonna have to go here. And it's kind of like, there's no real push for the real mechanic of the game, which is the auction outbidding the other players, and you don't feel that need to. So it kind of, Dice Manor doesn't really feel that good for me as a 2-player. Whereas a 3-player, when there's a third element in there, someone who's going to possibly outbid you, due to the fact that they can. That adds that kind of like excitement element to the game. It's like, oh, please don't. And hopefully I'm going to roll. And did I save enough of those tokens so I can re-roll, change the result of a dice? It's like,
yeah,
that's what makes the game fun. Yeah.
I think that excitement of having more competition and more people involved adds a different dynamic. And so if the game isn't designed specifically for 2 players, but you can play this game at 2, you lose some of that. And I think that's the case with most of the ones that I've played a lot of games with 2 players just to learn the game, where Josiah and I were sitting down just to learn it. And then afterwards it was like almost a negative experience. And we go, yeah, but this would be so much better with 3 players, or it'd be so much better if we had 4. Like Francis Drake, for instance, is a game we played 2 players. I did not like it at all. But when you play Francis Drake 5 players, it's the best friggin' game in the world.
It's like another life, isn't it?
Oh, it's just, it carries a total different tension and excitement and interest and more interesting choices. All of that gets played.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Will you buy a game that is only for 2 players, or are you just going to shy away from those games?
I'm going to shy away, I think, because gaming is a big experience. It's something you want to share with everyone. It's not just like you want to sit down. I mean, again, I've got enough 2-player games already sat on my shelf, which I can play. But why bother searching out just a 2-player game if you want to have that kind of bigger experience with more people? Again, it's nice to have party games. It's like, would you say, should I shy away from party games because I don't want to play with 8 players? I just want to play with 4, 3, or 2. But
I would say yes.
Having a lot of people at your house, and they're all drinking, and you think, well, I'm going to introduce them to something. I'm not going to introduce them to chess. I'm or even Star Trek chess, which is 3D board. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to introduce them to this little game here, who pairs wins, or something, or Excuse, or Telestration. Sorry.
Well, let me ask you this. We'll go into our list. We're going to do our top 5 games that are designed for 5 players, and then we're going to do our top 5 games that we think play well at 2 players. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. But before we do that, let me just ask you a question about 2-player games that are designed as 2 players. What things do you like about 2-player games? Barry Seidel's in the chat. Hey. He says 7 Wonders Duels, an awesome 2-player game. I agree.
Yeah.
I have so many on my list.
I don't know. That's a tough one. What do you like about games? I like having, you'll notice this from my list. I like having games where each player has a different approach to the game. Kind of like hide and seek, like was it Mr. Jack? Or so it's not equal, basically. So it's not a case of chess where you both have the same teams and it's just the best person that wins or whatever. It's where each player has a different. Oh, I can't think of the word. Why can't I not think of the word?
Different choices.
Yeah, but not different choices, but a different startup or a different objective or something which just makes their playing style differently.
How about games like Android Netrunner, for instance, where you got this back and forth asymmetric type thing, or Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, I did buy that and I did play that and I loved it, and I had to sell it because no one could play it with me. But that's the unfortunate thing about the game. It was just like, yeah, this is fantastic. You both have your different abilities. One's hacking and the other one's putting up firewalls. And it was like this great kind of competition back and forth. But unfortunately, it was a game that was never going to hit my table. And so I had to make space and get rid of it. And it is, as Barry says.
When my kids were at home, I had a lot more opportunity to play 2-player games. And my wife and I don't play that many games together. So when we do, it's when we have some friends over or something like that. Yeah. So if we're going to sit down and play a game real quick, we're going to play a game of cribbage or something like that, So I tend to not go for a 2-player game anymore. I used to buy more of them.
Yeah.
I do own quite a few of them, but generally I don't have just one person coming over to play games. When we have a game day, I've got 2 or 3 or 4 of the family coming over, and sometimes friends coming over. And of course, the last few years, my game playing has not been near what it used to be. So there's been a change in that dynamic.
Yeah.
I do like that back and forth competition sometimes. And we're going to talk about some games that we're going to talk in our top 5. I have a bunch of honorable mentions, so I can throw out like one of the games that didn't make my top 5 that I think is amazing game. It could have easily made the top 5 too. I just was trying to choose what I like best. But there's a game called War Chest from AEG. And it has that chess-like type of strategy elements. And there's a lot of choices on where am I going to move that thing? Where am I going to do this? What is he going to do or she going to do? And this back and forth. There's another game that I adore and easily, again, could have made the top list. I just don't get to play it as often now, but the game Onitama from Arcane Wonders. I love Onitama. It's so simple to play. You got 5 cards. You each got 2 cards. You can see what the other person's doing. You're trying to take over the other guy's pawn. Well, that's that back and forth, slap you in the face mechanism.
Yeah.
But I like that. So there's games like that. I think it's great, but that's got to be your thing. So
yeah, precisely.
So Barry says the games that require a bot for the 2-person version are usually not as good. Dune Imperium as an example.
Yeah.
Agreed. That's a great point. I think sometimes that introduction of the bot to create that extra player that's needed, third player sometimes is needed. I see that with some area control games too. And I hardly ever think area control games that are designed for 3 or 4 players ever really work at 2.
No. Again, I've been playing a lot of solo, the Runes of Arnak, and you play against the bot, which is kind of nice because it kind of gives you a different score to beat every time you play it because you don't know what cards they're going to buy.
Are you playing it solo or are you playing with 2 players?
Solo. I've never played it with 2 players.
Yeah.
But I just play it solo because there's no one that wants to learn it. And so, the bot is not too bad. It does make it interesting. It moves the market.
But that's kind of a different topic of solo gaming versus 2-player bots, where you've got 2 players and then you've got another bot that act as the third player because the game doesn't really work.
Totally lost there.
I'm trying to think of a few other that are like that. I think there's some Stonemaier games that are like that.
Heat does that, doesn't it? Heat does that. The other cards are bots. You can have 1, 2, 3 or extra bots depending on how many players.
Rick has a comment. He said he really likes Onitama because it helps show younger players that moves that they choose have consequences later in the game and easy to play too. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And Barry said he meant third person for the game. Yeah. So yeah. Well, let's just, I think we've kind of this to death as far as what we like and don't like, but let's go through our top 5 games designed for 2 players.
Okay.
And I can start out if you'd like.
Yeah.
Just had my birthday, and my son had got me a birthday present, and the birthday present didn't arrive in time for my birthday. And we celebrated our birthday after the fact because I was down at Tantrum Con and spent time with friends, Barry and Amy Seidel down in Greenville. And anyway, he gives me this expansion to this game that's my top 5.
Okay, which top 5 are we doing? The
top 5 games
only games
designed for 2 players.
Okay.
Now, this game is designed for 2 players, but it does have a variant where you can play teams, but that's not designed, in my mind, for that. So I'm calling this a 2-player game, and it's Star Wars Rebellion.
Okay.
I love Star Wars Rebellion. It's got this hidden movement. It drips theme like crazy. Incredibly well produced. It says 2 to 4 players, but it's a 2-player game. You can play 2 teams, but I don't think it works at all, and I don't think it's really designed for that purpose. So I put it in the 2-game category. I could have put something else and put this in the other one, but I felt like this is a 2-player game. It was very close for me. There's the game The War of the Ring and the game The Battle of the 5 Armies from Ares Games. And these have similar things where you could play teams if you wanted, but it's not designed for that. They are 2-player games. I love all 3 of those games for that reason. I think they're perfectly designed as a 2-player game. And so for me, Star Wars Rebellion is right up on my list. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is a game called, you can see me typing it out, War of the Worlds from Grey Fox Games.
Oh, I have that on my shelf of shame.
Yes, this one just squeaks in because I haven't played it enough. I've played it a few times, and it is a 2-player deck building game. And as I said, it's got asymmetric. That's the word I was searching for. Asymmetric.
And it's 2-player. That's right.
It's 2 players. So one person's playing the Martians and one person's playing the humans. And you're building a deck and building up your forces to fight over England. It works really well in the regards of the different powers that each race has. So like the aliens can have heat rays, which can wipe out humans quite easily. And then humans have to build stuff and tanks and forces to attack the Martians in their tripods. It all works really well. I just can't remember too much about the game because I haven't played it enough. It's a game that I would like to play a bit more, but it does work as a 2-player quite effectively. As I said, asymmetrically, you have different powers, and it makes it fun. So you can swap as well.
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast after it drops, you can also see the live video on our YouTube channel, Berkey and Badger, and you can see Barry scrolls through each one of these games and with pictures from the game, art playthroughs, so you can actually get a good idea of what the game actually is if you're interested in a little bit more in-depth look at what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Well, my number 4 on my list is a 2-player game designed by Reinhard Knizia. It's an older game. I love this game. It's a card game, and it has kind of like a mini poker mechanism to it, but it's called Battle Line.
Oh, yes.
Battleline. I love Battleline. You've got these little pawns, and I believe there's nine of the pawns, or maybe there's 7. No, there's 9 of them, I think. And these pawns set up, and then you have these little sets of 3 cards that you're playing. It has kind of Greek. It's really a tacked on theme, but you can do a Greek phalanx, for instance, or different type of formations. But basically, it's a straight or a 3 of a kind or a royal flush in 3 card elements. And once you have beaten your opponent across the table where they play their cards, and you can prove that because all those cards have either been played or not. If they have not been played, it's not proven, so you don't get that token. Well, it's the first person to get 3 of these flags, tokens, right next to one another can win, or if you have 5 of those tokens, you have a victory. The cards are really nice. It's simple. It's easy to pack. My wife likes playing this game with me, so it's easy to take along. I can usually use the Battleline box and put the Battleline, take the insert out, put the Battleline cards and tokens in there, and then put another game in that same box, and it's perfect for traveling.
I'm sold. I want the asterisk version there.
Oh.
I'm sold.
Well, I love Battleline. It's super fun, and it's just that great little 30-minute, 25-minute game that you can play, and everybody I play it with always likes it. My son-in-law really likes to play it. So Battleline.
My number 4 is Star Realms, which is technically at the beginning, it was a 2-player deck building game where you're building a fleet from a pool of cards in the middle of the table. So you do start off with the same cards as your opponent, but as your deck builds, you become asymmetric, and you're basically trying to whittle down their authority by attacking them, and also keep your authority and buy other ships. And there's 4 different races, and they each will have different powers, and there's thousands of different cards that come in this game. They did introduce a 3 or 4 player version, which is playable, but it's kind of like when you do damage to your opponents, it's like, oh, what do I do? Do I just damage one opponent, or do I split my damage up and give it to everyone? And it's like, it kind of, wishy-washy.
The 4-player version where you're playing in those teams, it had that mechanism too. Then the team players can decide which one gets to draft and which one doesn't. They took that mechanism from Hero Realms, which was their subsequent deck building game.
Yeah. And
we played that, the 4-player version too, and didn't like it at all. But 2-player Star Realms.
Yeah. Works for me.
Yeah, it's a great game. Well, my number 3 is a game that you don't hear a lot of people talking about, but it's by Academy Games. And this was one of the games that Josiah and I played a lot. We just love this game. It's called 1775. And it's the Revolutionary War. You've got this really cool cube tower mechanism where your forces are being deployed. The area control strategy is just incredible. You've got cards that you can play, kind of like Memoir 44 type of cards that give you special actions. So you've got this push and pull mechanism that's a little bit of that fog of war type of thing going on. And then you've got a little bit of that randomization with, the mercenaries, and then you've got the natives. There's just so much going on in this game, and it just plays beautifully. We love this game. Brilliant design. There's a whole series. There's 1812. There's the Vikings 878 from Academy Games. I love this game. 1775. Just a perfect 2-player game, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned Memoir 44. That's not on either of our lists.
I should have had it on the list too. It's like I've got so many. I've got a whole list here. I could talk about games like that I love. Memoir 44, 2-player, perfect.
It's a good game. I've played it a couple of times, and again, it's an asymmetric game, which is quite fun, but it didn't make my list. In fact,
if I was talking about Memoir and the Command and Colors system from Richard Borg, all of those games, Command and Colors, Napoleonic, and all of that. It's awesome.
Yeah. What did make my list, though, was a game that Berkey mentioned earlier, Onitama.
So good.
This is just, I don't know, this is chess but fun. Light, plays quickly, and it's perfect information. It like chess, and
that's not. Oh, where? I haven't seen that version before.
No, I haven't either.
The heck?
But it's they're nice pieces as well. But it's very simple. You play a card, and then that card lets you move one of your pieces in one of the formations marked on the card, and then you discard that card to a spare card in the middle of the table, and you take that card, and then your opponent does the same thing. So you're like swapping cards, and you're trying to hold on to cards which are powerful, which you think your opponent could use against you to take down your pieces. And it's all done on a very, very small board with 5 playing pieces per character. And it works for me. I mean, I can get this out and just, it'll pass the time with my daughter because she loves this game. Onitama, simple, elegant, perfect kind of chess game, but simplified.
Yeah, really good. Barry's got a comment. He says, "Are you ranking games?" And it's cutting off on me.
Are you ranking games meant for 2 players? Yeah, these are all 2-player games, Barry.
Yeah, and sometimes they say they're 2 to 4, but not necessarily really designed that way.
And then we're going to do games that are not 2-player games that we like playing at 2-player.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's a great choice, Onitama. So my number 2 is a repeat, so we don't have to talk much about it, but it's Star Realms.
Oh, is it?
I love Star Realms. Dominion is not a 2-player game, but I think Dominion plays fine at 2 players.
Yeah.
We're getting to that list next, but Star Realms, to me, I like Dominion a lot. We just played it the other day, actually, 3-player, and really enjoyed it. But I just love Star Realms. There's just something about that game. I have all the expansions. I'm waiting for the Kickstarter big box thing that's coming with it for campaigns. And
okay,
I just love that game. So Star Realms, you've already talked about it, but that's my number 2.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I like about it is that there's so many different cards. It's not like Dominion where you have 10 set cards. Or for another example, with Thunderstone, you haven't got these set cards which you got to decide. Okay, I need to buy one of those to get, and then 3 of those, and that should win me the game. In this, it's like another ship comes along and you go, okay, maybe I could buy that one. I can afford it, but should I mix it up with the other cards that I have? Is it going to combo well? Do I need that card? Is that card going to scrap? And so it's like this market is just constantly changing with different ships, different abilities, different prices. And I think that's what makes it fun. And then, as I said, the game, you start the same, but you become very, very, very different players.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Your number 2?
My number 2 is a game that I've spoken about many times. The base game is 2-player. But when you mix more and more games together, you can play 3-4 players, and that is Syrinscape.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This game does work really well at 2 players. It does work at lots of other players as well, but it is, as I said, technically a 2-player game. Where you build up a terrain, you pick a scenario, and then you build an army from drafting or by having points, and then you just go play that scenario, whether it be wipe out the other player, capture a flag, or do an escort mission, or survive a toxic mist, or there's just infinite missions that you can play. And once you've spent an hour building your terrain, you're gonna have that sad story of having to destroy it after
Yeah,
you've
to take it
played.
apart. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so much fun. It's so much fun, and it works as a 2-player game really, really well. But it also works as 3 and 4. But as I said, technically 2-player when it was marketed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, my number one. Can you guess what it is out there in Babble land? A few people that know me probably know what my favorite 2-player game is, because it's actually my second most favorite game of all time. It's number 2 on my list.
Barry's got some guesses or some ideas.
He's saying a couple of his. Before I tell you what my number 1 is, Barry says some of his favorite are Jaipur, which I have that game and haven't played it. It's still on my shelf of shame, opportunity. Lost Cities is a really good one. Targi, I love that game. And 7 Wonders Duel are on his list.
I've never heard of the game 2 Cents. What's that?
And yeah, is my 2 cents. It's actually is my 2 cents. It's a very good game. You always give your 2 cents. But you don't use pennies. You're actually using your mind and your vocal cords to give your 2 cents in the game. It's very good. My number 1 of all time is Baseball Highlights 2045. Yeah, baby. I absolutely adore this game. Baseball Highlights, designed by Mike Fitzgerald. And this has this asymmetric type of abilities. You're playing back and forth. You've got the robots, and you have the cyborgs, and you have the naturals who can still kind of compete against them. They've got these super cool, fun names from baseball players of the past that were notable players. Like one of my cards that I think is one of my favorite is Mookie Betts. Well, that's a combination of Mookie Rivers and what's Betts' first name? Anyway, it's this combination. But he has the Magna Glove ability where he can cancel 2 hits, and he also gives you extra runs. There you go, Mickey Maris. So you got Mickey Mays and Roger Maris, and he's a natural. He's the glove. He cancels a hit. Love the artwork on this game. Eagle Griffin did a great job. We've played in many tournaments where you're playing 2 players. It's a deck builder, and you've got this little deck of cards, and you're going to play out 6 of them, representing 6 innings. And oftentimes it goes into extra innings. Very seldom when you play a 7-game tournament do you not play the full 6 or 7 games. It's that good. It's just a beautiful design. I love it, love it, love it. And there's a great app that you can play with as well on the iOS. Baseball Highlights 2045 by Mike Fitzgerald and Eagle Griffin Games, my number 1 2-player game.
Okay. My number 1 2-player game is another asymmetric game called King and Ass.
King and Ass.
It is. King and Assassins.
Assassins. I knew you weren't saying it right.
This is from Gattaca and Rune Editions. This is a perfect 2-player game that my daughter and I love playing, where one player controls the king and his knights, and he's trying to get back to his castle after some event, and the other player is playing the peasants and some assassins, which are hidden in amongst the peasants. And it's a very stealthy, strategic game where you're trying to bluff the other player with your movements, and hopefully either make it to the castle if you're the king, or kill the king twice. Well, stab him twice with 2 of your assassins before he can get to the castle. And this is the special edition with the very nice minis and not the standees. But this game is just simple to teach. and so much fun and so replayable because you can swap your roles. There's 2 different board size, so you can play 2 different villages, and it's just a perfect 2-player game. It just breaks everything that I know about 2-player games. But yeah, there you go. My number 1.
Yeah, we had the opportunity when we were at Essen and we came and spent time at your house. You taught me this game. And subsequently, I actually purchased this game. And I was going through some of my games the other day, and I thought this would be a perfect game for me to teach my grandson, Philip. He's 6 years old, but he's very astute. We've got Not My Eyeball Games. Hello from Indiana in Babblot. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, so I thought this would be a really good type of game, and it's got a little bit of that easy mechanism of moving, 1 or 3 spaces, depending on which, token. Yeah. I think he would like it. So yeah, I was just thinking about this game. I figured this would be high on your 2-player list.
Yeah. So there you go. My list is basically a lot of asymmetric games of 2 players. So one player has got some power over the other, but the other player's got another power over the other. And that makes games fun. Apart from Monotama, which no.
I thought maybe you would have said Arkham Horror, the card game.
I haven't played Arkham Horror, the card
game.
I
thought you had played that.
No, I've got Arkham Horror and I've got Mansions of Madness and I've got the dice one, but I haven't got the card game.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, now we're going to go through quickly our top 5 games that are not designed specifically 2-player, but we think play really well as 2 players. My number 1 on the list, and I have so many games we could have talked about that were 2-player that I didn't talk about. I'll just skip it for time's sake now. But my number 5 of games that I think play well at 2 players that are designed for more is the game Dragon Castle.
Oh yeah.
This is a game from Horrible Games that was produced by Simon. And Dragon Castle basically has this mahjong mechanism, and then you're building temples and getting victory points for doing that, and you got to grab these pairs. It's just a beautiful game. All kinds of variability. You can play this up to 4 players too, and it works really well. Everybody's got their own player board, but you can play all kinds of different setups if you want. It feels great. The production's great. It just gives you that little bit of a puzzle, and you're trying to do things. And the tension at 2 players, I think, is cool because, well, if I take this one, it might make this next edge piece available, and I don't want to do that now. And so what else can I do? But I got to pull matching tiles. So I think it works really great, and it's easy to set up. So that's a quick overview of Dragon Castle.
Yeah, nice. I like that game. I prefer it with more, but yeah, it works with 2. Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, my number 5, and let's see if you can see a pattern in these types of games.
A pattern.
This game works really well, 2 players. Been playing a lot of this lately. Castle Panic.
Castle Panic.
Castle Panic. Yeah, it's a co-op game where players are trying to defend their castle from these monsters which are approaching them. And as you can see, this is the new artwork. This is the old artwork.
I was going to say, it looks like Dragon's Lair.
Yeah, it does look like Dragon's Lair, but yeah, the old artwork is there. It's a very simple co-op game where you just play cards to defeat your enemies, and then the enemies move, and some of them have special powers, or otherwise they just ram your walls and the barricades down, and they try and destroy your castle. It's fun. I like playing it with 2. When it gets to more co-op game like this, doesn't work so well. It kind of gets a bit convoluted with players' turns. But yeah, just doing a back and forth with a simple co-op game like this is fantastic.
Yeah, I think I just saw you post something on Facebook where you were playing with your son.
Yeah, he keeps asking to play it.
That's awesome.
Okay, that's my number 5.
My number 4, I think this game plays really well at the higher player counts, but I really enjoy playing it 2-player. I've played it several times with my daughter, Maddie, and we both just have a blast playing Wingspan.
No.
We feel like, you know, there's enough choices. You got the dice that you're rolling, you're collecting resources, you're building your own little engine, and it just works fine. We enjoy playing it at 2 players, and I get really a lot of the feeling that I get when we play with more. I mean, it's more competitive when you play with more because people might take something that you were spying, you know, than in the open draft area, but not and or take one of the dice that you want. So there's more competition with more people, but we really enjoyed playing it with 2 players. So Wingspan from Stonemaier Games.
Nice.
Sold over 1 million copies of this game.
It's incredible.
It's nuts. It's just
nuts.
Amazing.
Okay. My next game, which is plays really well with 2 players. I prefer it with 2 players. It doesn't feel so convoluted. It's another co-op game. I think that's the pattern here. It's called City of Zombies. Basically designed by Matthew Tidbury, who's a math teacher, and it's a math game basically where you're killing zombies in a very, again, tower defense.
You kill them with math, like they can't figure it out and their mind blows up.
So each of the zombies have a value on them, and then you roll 3 dice, and then you just use math to make those numbers. The basic level, which I play a lot with my son, is you just like add 2 dice together to get 12. For example, but in the more advanced versions where the zombies have like numbers like 77, you've got to do times, multiplication, squaring, cubing, and you can do all of that with these 3 dice, and you're trying to protect your camp and keep the survivors alive. There's loads of different expansions in this version that I have. You have aliens coming, you have hero powers, and it's just a math game. But it's just so simple and just so relaxing. And it's nice, as I said, to just have this back and forth with 2 players. Again, with this game, if you can play up to 6, but with 6, it's like you roll the dice 3 times for each person. So you've got a good chance of wiping out a lot of the zombies with that many dice. Whereas with the back and forth, it keeps it tense, it keeps it tight. There's just your 3 dice and their 3 dice to try and clean up the board and stop the zombies from attacking your barriers and eating your survivors. Such a fun little game. I can't understand why this isn't like higher up somewhere on Board Game Geek, because it's maybe because it's math. But
yeah, I've never heard of it before.
No, but it's great. It's a good game because you have to think. You're like, oh my god, how am I going to kill that? I've got a 7. I've got a 3, a 5, and a 4, and I need to kill as many zombies as I can. And if I square that and times that with that and divide that by that, and it's like a math game, and you're bantering out with the other players as like, okay, yeah, we can kill that one and that one, but it'd be probably best if you kill that one because that one's going to kill lots more survivors if it reaches the barriers. And it's like, it's tense and exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
It is.
Well, my number 3 is a game that I enjoy very much just playing alone with my wife. She loves this game. I've played it with Maddie as 2 players. I think it's better with 3 and 4, but I think it plays really well with 2, and that's the game Azul by Plan B Games. I'm talking about the original one. I haven't played some of the Stained Glass and Chocolate Factory and Summer Garden or whatever, all these Summer Pavilion, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it plays really well. It's, again, you're trying to collect these tiles, and you got to collect them in sets that are from each little tile factory, and you're trying to get points because they're adjacent to one another on your own player board. So it plays quickly at 2 players. So it's one of those games that you can just pull out really quick. It's pretty. It's easy to play once you've learned the basic scoring, which is pretty simple. It takes just a little bit of catching on. Well, if I place this one next to this one, and then I play it adjacent, vertical versus horizontal. And if you get all 5 of a certain tile, you get a 10-point victory bonus. If you get tiles across horizontally, that signifies the end of the game, but you get 2 points for that. And if you get a vertical a row of tiles, you get an extra 7 points, I think it is. And so Azul, it's just a lot of fun. Plays really good at 2 players.
Okay. Your number 3. My number 3
Your
is
number 3.
a game which is designed for up to 4 players, but technically it's a 2-player game. It's called Alone from Horrible Guild, where one player plays a hero lost on a ship, and the other player or the other players play the evil monsters which are lurking around in the ship. As I said, technically it's basically a 2-player game where you're doing this back and forth where the hero's exploring the ship, looking for traps, making sure they're shining lights. They're not going to have a monster jump out on them and give them a heart attack, and trying to stay alive. And it's kind of a reverse Dungeons and Dragons Descent, a reverse Descent.
Yeah, like Descent. Yeah.
So but it works best 2-player. It's a bit convoluted with more players because, as I said, you have multiple players playing the villain, and basically the villain have X amount of cards which they have to divide between them, but they can't show them and they can't talk about them, but they've got to work together to try and take down the hero as they're exploring the ship and trying to escape the situation. There's loads of different scenarios in the game. The components are wonderful. This is top quality. This is excellent work from Horrible Guild. Unfortunately, it's a game I haven't got to play a lot. I wish I want to play it more, but it just so perfect as a 2-player game. It's a perfect idea.
Yeah, it looks great. Barry has a list of his games we'll talk about after we do our number 1. Okay. So my number 2, and this is an interesting selection because this game is Splendor. Splendor plays great at 2 players. We've played it a lot that way, and it's better, I think, again with 3 and 4, but it's fine as 2-player. But then they came out with Splendor Duel that is so much better, and it's designed for 2 players, and the choices are more interesting, and I liked it a lot just as the regular game 2 players. But they did kick it up a notch, in my opinion, with Splendor Duel. It was better. The choices were more interesting, and there was a little bit more tension and push and pull with that center playing board on Splendor Duel. But Splendor by itself, I think, is a fine 2-player game. Okay.
I love playing Splendor. We play it a lot 2-player, but I'm not content for some reason. I like having the other people to interfere. So it's not just down to me to reserve that mine to stop my wife from getting it. Someone else reserve it or someone else buy it,
Yeah, and it's too easy with 2 people to know what the other person is going for. Yeah. When you have more people, it's harder to keep track of it all quickly.
Yeah. This is a game that I excel at. I love playing because I feel really clever when I play it. Yeah.
Oh, you excel at it. You're like a guru.
I just love it. I just love planning. Some people just like to have like a 1 route plan. I have 5 routes. I'm like, okay, right, I'm going to get this chip, and this chip, so I can buy either that one, or that one, or that one. And I've got a route planned. I've got several routes planned. And it's like every time someone mucks something up, my brain goes, oh, right, another puzzle to sort out. So I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to go this way instead.
I always build my engine way too wide in that game, and then I miss it.
Yeah. So yeah, Splendor. I'm really tempted to get the 2-player version because, as I said, we played 2-player a lot here, and
you'll like it.
I don't feel filled.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. All right, your number 2.
My number 2 is a co-op game where you are detectives, and I'm spelling it wrong for some reason.
Ooh, detectives. Mr. Jack?
No. It's a game which is designed for more than 2 people. It's called Chronicles of Crime.
Oh, duh.
Yeah. Again, I like playing this solo, but it's more fun to have someone to banter off of. Having too many people, you have too many contradictions and conflict when you play like 4 or 6 players. But this game is like you're playing with the app, scanning cards, getting story of characters, and then afterwards you start building up your own stories and start coming to your own conclusions. And then there's like this negotiation as you try to figure out this crime, whether it be a murder or a theft or whatever. It just works really, really well. And even if you've solved the crime already, coming back to it a year or 2 later, you forget so many little things and you can just play it again. And there's lots of different scenarios and lots of different expansions for this game. This is just such a fun, light game with an app, doing some detective work, co-op, works really well, 2 players. If in my opinion, it's best with 2 players. 3 or 4, it gets, as I said, convoluted, but it's still good with other player counts.
Wow, cool. All right, my number 1.
Your number 1.
Now, before we do our number 1s, well, let's run over to Barry's top ones. Anybody else in the chat, feel free to let us know what games you think play well at 2 players. Barry says Lords of Waterdeep, Wingspan, Orleans, Champions of Midgard, and Arkham Horror LCG. Those are all really good choices.
Yeah.
I don't remember playing Orleans. I love Orleans, but I don't remember playing it at 2 players. And one of the games that I haven't played 2 players that I've been told is excellent is Foundations of Rome from Arcane Wonders. And I absolutely adore that game, but I've not played it 2 player.
It's okay. It excels with 3 or 4 when you've got that market moving all the time.
That's what I would think. Like, you want more bidding and stuff, but I was told it was really good at 2 players.
Yeah, it works. It works. But, again, I like that kind of like trying to figure out my next 4 steps. And then someone put their foot in it, and then I have to change my plans. I'm not having to think quickly and go, okay, right, and I'm going to do that instead.
Yeah.
That's what
my number 1 is a game that I love playing with my wife, 2 player. And we've played this many times with 3 or 4 players. It's really nicely produced. And it's the game Sagrada. Sagrada. And Sagrada is from Floodgate Games, designed by my good friend Daryl Andrews. I love Daryl to pieces. And this was really a hit game for him. And really, he had designed so many different games, but this one really put him on the map, I think. And Sagrada is, you're building these, you're getting dice, and you have different objectives that are goals for end game scoring that come out in the form of these cards. And it's different every game. There's these tiles that fit behind your stained glass, and you have to put these dice where, like, you can't have 2 green dice together or 2 yellow dice or 2 red. They have to be in different spaces is basically the rule. And then sometimes the denominations. But you might get, if you get 4 dice that are all different colors on one row, you're going to get extra victory points for that. So there's this really tricky puzzle element to it. And it just plays really good 2 player. We usually bring this when we go on a trip because we've sat and played this at an airport while we're waiting for our flight, that type of thing. It doesn't take up a lot of space and just works really good. Really enjoy Sagrada from Floodgate Games, designer Daryl Andrews.
It is a lovely looking game. Still haven't played it. Need to play it.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay. Can you guess what my number 1 is?
Your number 1.
All my games are practically cooperative games.
I'm going to say Batman.
No. Can you see it?
Dead Space. This is good TV.
Oh, this is good TV. It's Defenders of the Realm.
Oh, duh. We just talked about this on our games from 2010, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, my daughter plays this a lot with me, just me and her. And it's again good with 2 players. It's fun with 3 and 4. It gets convoluted, and you feel a bit frustrated when you can't do something on and it's not your turn because it's someone else's turn, and there's like loads of monsters coming, and you're in the space ready to fight the boss, but the other player decides not to bother coming to you, and then but yeah, 2 players, cooperative. This game is just kick-ass as you try and protect Monarch City from these 4 bosses and all their minions spawning up. It's pandemic, but it's so much fun. I think I've said enough.
Yeah, that's King Richard Launius, and the new game from Arcane Wonders, our sponsor, Freedom 5, in the Sentinels of the Multiverse universe, is kind of a implementation and some design tweaks that I hear are very good. That game is coming out here probably in the next 4 to 5 months, is going to be fulfilled from Kickstarter. So there's King Richard. Love him. We got to play Rolling Thunder at Dice Tower Con with him. And he's the designer of Arkham Horror, of course, and a lot of other games. Yeah. So yes, Defenders of the Realm, great choice. Well, we've done it. We got 5 of our top 2-player games, 5 of our top games we think play well at 2 players. You can review these on our live video if you're listening to this on YouTube or on Libsyn or on your iTunes player, Stitcher Radio. But you can also find this information at our YouTube channel at Berkey and Badger. Berkey and Badger on Twitter, on Facebook. And we're going to put together some guild questions on our Board Game Geek Guild called 2248. And we're going to talk about some of your favorite 2-player games and that you guys chime in on what your favorite player counts are and that type of thing. And maybe that will develop into another episode of Berkey and Badger.
Maybe.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We see several people in the chat. Thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. And did you have anything to add to that, my friend?
Sorry, I thought the internet dropped out there. No, there's nothing I can add. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope these games might be good suggestions for you, especially if you play 2-player games with whoever your other person is, whether it be that person in the same house as you, that person in the same street, or maybe just that person online that you can play a game with. These are just some suggestions that we think work for 2-player games the best that we've played.
Or the Stray Cat.
Okay.
Well, that's it. Send us on out.
I will do. Once I get on the right screen, I find the right thing. There it is. Click
Thanks,
on it.
everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
We're so glad we had this time together. And now it's time to go. It won't be long until we have another show. So keep us in mind, get online. Berkey and Badger will be back in no time.